and welcome everyone to ET Brand Equity presents The Big Leap, powered by CleverTap, an exclusive chat show featuring pioneers from India's 12 largest and fastest growing brands. I'm your host Gautam Srinivasan, and during these conversations, we'll bring you an inside look into the growth stories and success mantras of businesses that have taken a big leap and understand the nuts and bolts of how they identify gaps in the market and created solutions which transform the consumption habits of customers. Our first stop is a brand that revolutionized delivery services for India's digitally savvy consumers. Their pitch: delivery in 10 minutes. So let's strap in for the exciting growth story of Zepto. First, a quick overview. Zepto is present across 10 major Indian cities and delivers over 3,000 products. The quick commerce startup has over 2 lakh daily customers, and that's just the start. It's time to hear Zepto's growth story with Aadit Palicha, founder and CEO Zepto, and Amritansu Nanda, Chief Marketing Officer, Zepto. Aadit, Amritanshu, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to hearing the Zepto growth story from the both of you. And with every great story, there's always the origin point. So let's explore that first. I'll come to you, Aadit. I want to understand from you what drives people to take that big leap of faith, especially in business ideas, when you quit a big school, right? I mean, Bill Gates is I guess, Harvard's most famous dropout. You have Elon Musk from Stanford. You and Cavalier both dropped out of Stanford, came back to India, and here we are. So I want to understand what was going through your mind when you left that and came here to take that big leap of faith.
Well, first and foremost, it's wonderful to be here. And, thank you so much for having us on. In terms of, our thought process in the early days, transparently speaking, when Keval and I found ourselves in Mumbai back in sort of mid to late 2020, at the time, we had no intention of sort of starting a company, right? I think our big priorities right at that point were, can we find a place to stay where they'll accept 2 bachelors, right? Which was, I think, probably our biggest challenge at that point. But eventually, as we settled in the first wave of the pandemic, first lockdown, we found it incredibly difficult to get groceries. And online platforms were taking 5-6 days to deliver. Getting it offline was an enormous challenge as well. And that's when we sort of came into it with the mindset that, hey, here's a problem that's causing excruciating inconvenience to us. It's also seriously challenging our neighbors. We know that from the day-to-day conversations that we have with them. Is there something that we can do to solve it, right? And I think at that point of time, it serves founders well to think through the micro and not the macro. And at the time, that's what we were thinking through. So it started off as an interesting project. We wanted to see if we could do anything to make a dent in it, in this problem. We started delivering in our neighborhood, slowly started moving it into other neighborhoods in Mumbai as it scaled. And eventually we sort of took that concept, pivoted into what Zepto is today. And yeah, I mean, at that point, we started scaling. The opportunity became apparent that, if it's a, 1% or 2% probability to get into a highly competitive university, it's probably a 0.1% or 0.01% probability that you'll be able to build a successful generational company. And so when we looked at the maths, we figured that this opportunity would be more exciting, not just in terms of our overall outlook in life, but also in terms of what we enjoyed doing, right? And so yeah, for us, it just evolved into or started as a project that was exciting and was a problem that we were interested in, and eventually turned into an exciting business opportunity that we could learn from. And so that's how we ended up taking the leap, in a sense.
All right, let's explore that eureka moment in detail. You mentioned in an interview that a lot of competition in this space was either mis-executing grocery delivery or was focused on multiple different models. And that is where you and Cavalier sort of saw the opportunity. So expand on that for us, from that eureka moment, that seed when it came, and how it kind of propelled you to take that leap.
Look, I think when we actually took the opportunity forward and started scaling the company, I think, again, we looked at it more from a micro lens and a macro lens to say, hey, customers are loving our product. we're able to scale this with solid visibility into the business model and unit economics, and we're in a position where the market is just super exciting, right? So at that point, we didn't really look into dynamics of like, you know, what is, X external player doing, or how does the dynamic change as we, go from 0 orders a day to lakhs of orders per day. At that point, we basically, took internal conviction that, hey, all the signs around us, right, product market fit, scale, solid unit economics, right, those are the signals that keep clicking and just make sense to fire the business. As we sort of scaled, we realized that the reason why we were able to do it so quickly, and effectively we started a year ago, right, and we've scaled to where we are today, predominantly because we feel that this space has lacked sort of a focused upstart on building not just a business proposition in grocery delivery, but a business proposition that suits how Indians buy groceries in general, right? When you look at the Indian consumer, it's not sort of the 1 month basket that actually makes a difference. It's the multiple times a week. I pick up my fruits and vegetables from one guy, I pick up my milk from another guy, I pick up my Maggi noodles from another guy, and it happens so frequently. Whether it's the person that shows up in the morning for milk, or the butcher that I go to for meat, right? And so that type of use case, right, for the Indian customer, building something that fit that well was what we were excited by, and we felt that there was just no focus or a player that was predominantly focused on just that gave us sort of an advantage as we scaled. So I think when we were, so to summarize, when we were taking the leap, it was more so just the micro factors around us were firing on all cylinders. And then as we scaled, we realized that one of the big advantages we have is that sort of singular vertical focus.
All right, let's get down to the brass tacks. Amritansu, where did the idea of marketing a 10-minute delivery service come about? And why did you think customers would care whether it's say 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes? Was there some insight backing that decision?
So I'll answer the first, so this latter part first, which is would customers actually buy into the concept? So like Aadit mentioned, in the early days when we were trying different models, this is the one that ended up having the highest retention, right? So clearly customers were super keen, right? And one of the reasons why we believed it would work backwards is because the model itself is built backwards from the customer's interests, right? Now, like Aadit mentioned, we were not trying to superimpose how e-commerce operates onto grocery delivery. We were trying to marry a solution which resembles their current solution in the closest possible manner, right? And it's very important because grocery is a habitual purchase category, unlike most of the rest of retail, which are all occasional purchases, right? And when we have to dislodge the existing habit and bring in a new habit, right, it's very important that we first figure out what nuances we need to solve. And in that aspect, we felt that convenience of the local kirana store or the local alternatives is something that the incumbents in the space were not able to fulfill. And within that 10-minute, which is near instantaneous for the customers, seemed like a good position to occupy within the consumer's mind. And it obviously also facilitates the recall of the brand.
All right, let's now take the conversation towards the direction where we see technology enabling customer centricity and customer retention for Zepto. Now, Aadit, your monthly active user numbers have gone up exponentially. So, how do you manage hyper personalization of your consumers while your active user base keeps, going up? Take us through your customer cloud experience.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and frankly, it's a focus area, for me, for Amritansu's team. We're in a position where, as we scale micro market by micro market, right, whether we're in Defense Colony in Delhi, or whether we're in Hennur in Bangalore, or we're in Mumbai, we're in a position where the focus for us is, are we providing an assortment or access to an assortment that actually sticks to what customers in that geography would be purchasing, right? There's a big difference between what people buy in North Mumbai versus what people buy in South Delhi versus what people buy in Bangalore, right? And so, for us, that's one of the key focus areas, right? Micro market by micro market customization of what you can actually buy on Zepto. Beyond that, I think when we look at sort of user journeys, right, and when we design, fee structures, when we design coupon discount structures, we have a pretty complex framework of cohorts that we built very early on that have specific glide paths designed on their eventual monetization journey, right? And what we've seen is that certain customers, for example, get to maturity point in 30 days. Certain customers get to a maturity point in 90 days or 120 days, right? And given the early trends that we find of each customer, identifying that, putting them in a cohort where the glide path on monetization is comfortable for them, where we'll be able to extract the maximum level of average revenue per user without compromising on contribution margin. That's one of the other key pieces from a P&L perspective that we do when we talk about personalization. That also helps us maximize ARPU, right, average revenue per user. So those are, I think, the two major levers when you got on the category side and the assortment side, that customization, and on the P&L side, which is how we design our monetization framework. I think beyond that, we're in a position where the core customer experience, which is convenience at freshness that you like and reliability that you like, which most people don't talk about. You order 10 products, you get 10 products, right? Those three pieces are core across all geographies, right? So getting quick deliveries, freshness that you like, and reliable, like the reliable product, accuracy. Those are sort of the three pillars that exist in every geo.
Reliability is a big factor, and Zepto has turned one. Congratulations for that. And it still manages to stick to its 10-minute brand promise. And I notice a lot of your competitors have removed mention of time. They just say, hey, we offer you a quick delivery service. So, what steps have you taken to ensure that you stick to your 10-minute brand promise and customers don't view it as a sort of a gimmick, an advertising gimmick of some sort?
Yeah. So first of all, we genuinely believe in the promise that we make, right? So our median delivery time continues to be below 10 minutes, which means that we order more, we deliver more orders before 10 minutes than we do after, right? And we try and keep as much of the orders as possible close to the 10-minute mark, right? And that's very important in terms of how Zepto gets perceived, and it's also a promise that we have been able to fulfill throughout our 1 year journey, right? And it's been enabled through the phenomenal tech stack that we have, through the absolutely highest level of execution that we have within our operations teams, and through that, I think it's a genuine customer promise. It's something customers value. They associate Zepto with the quick deliveries that happen in and around the 10-minute mark, and barring very off force majeure instances, we are able to fulfill that promise as well. In addition, just to also put in the benefit of what's the benefit of communication around it, as soon as a customer opens the app, right? So we give them a realistic delivery time, right? So whether it's 7 minutes or 13 minutes or 10 minutes, we don't overpromise and underdeliver in that regard. So it's also got an element of how conversational the brand is with customers, and reliability over time is built through the depth of those conversations as well.
All right. Speaking of conversations, the hallmark of any successful enterprise, especially when it's starting out, is how closely it's listening to its customers. So, Adit, describe to us some of the earliest customer conversations you had around this idea of a 10-minute delivery service and how it kind of helped you evolve the business model going forth.
Yeah, I think, for us, actually, the core customer communication was before we even finalized on what Zepto would be and what that value proposition, one of the many value propositions would be. And, to sort of sidebar, I think we look at 10-minute delivery as a value proposition that exists within multiple value propositions at Zepto. But even before we finalized on the core of the company, when we were experimenting sort of between, mid to late 2020 to eventually sort of the early parts of 2021, before we actually launched Zepto, we were in a position where customers told us that this is the direction that you should move in. And we looked at sort of retention rates, frequency of usage, net promoter score, and multiple other sort of customer parameters, and modulated them based on delivery time and other factors as well to see what really moved the needle. Once we sort of saw that 10 to 15 minute golden range of delivery times, we saw NPS shoot up to levels that we hadn't heard of. Frequency almost doubled, and our retention rates were much higher than even other consumer internet benchmarks in that space. So it was very data driven, and anecdotally as well. When we spoke to those customers, they said, "Hey, at a certain point, this is actually significantly more convenient than the next best option, whether it's offline or online." And better yet, we're in a position where the customer, relates to a high frequency use case and is sort of inclined towards a high frequency use case. And a faster delivery fits into that, right? If you're buying, let's say, a product 4-5 times or 6 times a year, which is what traditional e-commerce might experience, you don't mind waiting 24 hours or 48 hours to get that delivery because it's only a couple of times a year. If you're buying something a couple of times a week, it becomes tedious, right? If you have to constantly wait 8 hours or 12 hours or 24 hours every time you need to get that chore done, especially if it's 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week, which is, the reason why we've got off the charts frequency when it comes to our customers as well, right? So that's the way that we approach it. Was the early conversations before we launched Zepto that gave us conviction. It was, we did not start with sort of a solution or even a problem. We started with what is the problem, right? Or what is something that people would value? And then we got the core value proposition from there.
All right, I guess the pandemic counts as one of the most disruptive events that we have seen in recent times, right? Now, during that period, I guess last year, your buyer retention rate was 65%, net promoter score of 88 points, quite a substantial number there. So I want to understand from you, what are the things which Zepto did right, especially in terms of its user engagement, which resulted in, I think, tripling of its user base almost. So we want to know what are the secret recipes of success that Zepto brought about when it came to user engagement.
So first of all, I think on the point of pandemic, we did not really benefit from the pandemic. We started post the second lockdown, and which makes the whole growth story that much more astounding. In terms of engagement, what we rely on deeply is our ability to segment customers and then also provide them with relevant communication, right? And which is an area in which our entire tech stack, our CDP and our campaign orchestration platform, which is CleverTap, all of these platforms have helped the marketing team provide relevant communication to the concerned cohorts in a very granular manner. And that means that people are customers are engaging with the brand. They actually are able to relate to what we are saying, and that makes their retention on the platform, which is a visit retention, as well as the retention to make a purchase, both of them significantly better than what I think most of our competitors would be operating with.
All right, that's the growth story of Zepto. Let's hyperlink it to some of the lessons that the leaders have learned. So, Aadit, I'll come to you. You're almost a $1 billion business. You're reaching there. So, at this point in time, when you look back, what are some of the lessons that you've learned in this journey?
I mean, that's a much longer conversation that I don't think we've got time for. Honestly, I think this has been by far the most consequential period of my life in terms of growth, not just as sort of an executive, but even personally in terms of where I, see focus areas for myself and where I can improve. I think the key lessons that I've learned is, frankly, the only reason why we've been able to have any form of success is because of the quality of the team that we've built. And I think being stubborn and uncompromising about the quality of people that you surround yourself with, whether that's a management team or whether that's a manager on the ground, right? We're in a position where that's served us phenomenally well, and I think that that's one thing that I would always hold dear. And the second thing that I've learned is that value is usually created in detail, right? It's not created at a high level. It's not created with sort of grand visions without much articulation of the specifics. It is sort of that thorough attention to detail and all the nuances of the business that's honestly put us in a position where, with a fraction of the capital that people would have expected for us to be in the position that we're in, we've been able to get to a very significant scale, right? With sort of efficiency levels that consumer internet companies don't see in a year out, with growth, obviously, like you mentioned, that's unprecedented, predominantly because we've been able to fix levers of the business at the very lowest level. And that's something that we also hold dear at as a management team, right? We don't want to be in a position where anything becomes beneath us or is a task that is too small. And in fact, we're in a position where a lot of senior ops leaders do deliveries very frequently. Kevalia and I on Sundays, sort of call customers individually. So yeah, when we're in a position where that those are the two sort of key lessons for me. Like the quality of people is uncompromising, and value is created in detail and specifics.
All right, roll up your sleeves. If you're a startup founder watching this special presentation, that's a word of advice coming in. You really need to dig deep and get into your business to cater to customers and make them fall in love with your brand. On that note, let's also explore the lessons learned in terms of walking the walk when it comes to the brand promise, right? Especially now that CX is a key factor for a lot of companies. And it is a major driver for customer loyalty in the face of exponential growth. That's one aspect. The other aspect is also how do you kind of translate it for your employees to make them also live your brand. So from these aspects, two aspects, what are some of the lessons that you've learned, Amritansu?
So on customer experience, I think it is very important that we deliver them that wow factor, and also provide them that we have to make it very frictionless for them to actually share that experience, right? And we've seen that time and again on social media. We keep getting a lot of affirmation that what we are doing is actually something that customers value. And we are also internally obsessed with our buyer retention numbers, our net promoter score. It's something that any individual in the entire organization will be able to tell us, I don't know, what we are trending at today, this week, how are we against last week. And that obsession of North Star metric and customer experience is one thing that will never change, right? Everything else around it can shift in priority. Customer experience is always priority one. And that obsession has got more to do with the DNA. That's how the team has been built, and they're fully accustomed to it. It's not an alien concept for them at all. And through that rigor, through that obsession, I think eventually the growth just ends up being a byproduct.
And how does technology power that obsession of, say, customers and employees, whether it's, say, solutions that CleverTap provides for you, or your broader customer cloud experience? What lessons are there for the viewers that you think are interesting?
Absolutely. So whether it's actually getting the feedback from customers at the right time, so those are areas where campaign orchestration platforms like CleverTap really help us out. Then there are also tools that help us visualize and figure out, okay, what's going wrong? How do we all further break it down into granular dispositions, right? So it can't all be that, okay, 88 still means that there were some detractors, right? And only if we keep that upward force going, then any downward force can get countered, or we might end up with an higher NPS as well. So all of these tools, whether it's visualization or breaking it down further, or just the collection aspect in which various channels have worked very well for us, right? So whether it's SMS or WhatsApp or in-app or push notifications, all of them have worked phenomenally well for us. So I think all of these things together will make this whole thing work.
All right, let's make the conversation more forward-looking in terms of lessons. You're very close to becoming a unicorn. So for our user base of viewers who are watching this, who themselves might be startup founders or entrepreneurs, what mistakes you think can be avoided, especially when companies become a unicorn? And how are you planning to avoid those mistakes?
I think probably the first mistake that most unicorn founders have successfully avoided, I feel, at least the ones that I know, is caring about that tag in the first place, right? Be honest, like, true to heart, at the lowest level, we really don't care about that tag. And the reason why is because, the one thing that you have to always keep in the back of your mind is that $1 billion company can very easily go to zero in a quarter, right? Not unheard of, happens very frequently. We have examples in our ecosystem as well. $10 million company can become a $100 billion company in a decade, right? And so we're in a position where real value creation is 5 years out, 10 years out at an end state. We're nowhere close to that. What our goalpost is in the meantime is genuinely irrelevant, right? Because we can be a $1.5 billion company today. Tomorrow we can be a $10 billion company, or a worth nothing, right? If we don't continue to execute over the course of a decade. So I think that's the first mistake. Generally speaking, the way that I look at the big mistakes that that sort of tag can give you is it's a little bit of complacency, a little bit of that invincible feeling, where in reality, as long as you're dependent on capital to grow, you're always dependent on the kindness of strangers, right? And those strangers being investors, which are always not always so kind, right? Other than Savir, obviously, he was there. But the position that we take is that as long as we're dependent on that capital, we can't get complacent, and even when we're not dependent, complacency is dangerous. And I think if you've had a company life cycle that's obviously had a very successful track record for you to get to $1 billion valuation plus, you tend to have sort of a hot hand fallacy, or you think that that's going to keep happening, right? My next fundraise will be as successful as the last fundraise that I had. And that's when a lot of founders take decisions like over expanding, over investing, and potentially being a little less disciplined on sustainability and on unit economics, that puts them in a tough position a quarter, 2, 3, 4 quarters out, when they need to go back to those strangers and ask them for their kindness. And so, yeah, I think that's the biggest mistake. Don't care about the tag, because most of the value will be created a decade from now, most likely for most startup founders. And don't get in a position where you're complacent, where you think the last fundraise will be as successful as the next one, because at the end of the day, if the strangers aren't kind, you'll be in a difficult position very quickly. So, yeah.
Words of wisdom for, again, those of you who are watching on the mistakes to avoid when you reach a unicorn status. All right, sustainability of growth obviously means the customer is at the center, and the earliest customers who sign up to you. How do you identify and nurture these brand advocates and make them feel rewarded for that long association? What are some lessons there that you could share, Amritansu?
First of all, I think it's it's like Aadit mentioned earlier. It's very important to listen to what they have to say, right? So because conversations, everyone wants to build a conversational brand, but conversations are two-way. And our early customers we've heard them more than probably anyone else, right? So our early customers are obviously at the heart of what Zepto is today. And we really, we've learned a lot in terms of what they want, in terms of the assortment, how much does speed matter to them, what kind of use cases, are do they associate with Zepto? Because we've heard of use cases in which, NRIs actually use Zepto to order groceries for their parents, right? And we actually see orders coming in from the US, and we are like, okay, what's happening here? The delivery address is here in Mumbai, but orders coming in from the US. And the idea is to be accessible, is to be approachable, is to be conversational as a brand. And we've kept it front and center of our priority. Like any outreach on social media or directly to us, it's absolutely priority one for us. It's something that we value the most. So listening to customers effectively is the best way to ensure that the relationship is thriving.
All right, let's get in some lessons from an operational perspective. I believe Zepto operates on a sort of a hub and spoke model with a network of delivery centers catering exclusively to online shopping. So from an operational perspective, what are some of the lessons that you could share? I think within 5 months, you had launched 100 micro warehouses. So share with us some of those insights there.
Yeah, I think the majority of the lessons that we think are important and are excited to talk about are on the last mile front, right? The actual delivery experience, whether that comes to how we've, let's say, rearranged the geos that last mile delivery partners used to deliver in versus how they deliver with Zepto on. For example, if I'm a delivery partner that's working with, let's say, a marketplace or another consumer internet company where I'm delivering across the city, I might log onto my app and start, let's say, with the delivery from a restaurant in North Mumbai, right near where I stay. By the end of the day, I get a delivery. On next time I get a delivery from West Mumbai. After that, the restaurant comes in from South Mumbai. By the end of the day, 9-10 p.m., I'm sitting in a position where I'm at the very bottom of the city, going to travel all the way back, which is a 1.5 hour journey. Nobody's going to pay for that fuel. I come home late to my family, and it's just a difficult experience, right? Versus what we've done, one of the key insights we've had is just sort of rearranging geography so that if you, for example, stay near Hawaii and Mumbai, you'll be able to, deliver here, you'll be stationed here, your breaks will be here, and at the end of the day, you'll be, a few minutes away from where you stay, right? That's, insights like those on rearranging last mile network design have really sort of made the difference when it comes to engagement with our delivery partners and our cost per order, right? The productivity of last mile riders. That's one. The second biggest insight that we have operationally is the fact that, the faster you're delivering, the cheaper it gets. Right? We're in a position where if you look at sort of last mile costs, it's effectively a ratio of how much you're paying per hour divided by how many orders you can do per hour. And when we give delivery partners the ability to make short distance deliveries, the average distance of a Zepto delivery is 1.7 kilometers versus 3-4 times that for marketplaces, right? When you give delivery partners short and easy deliveries, right, and it's coming, 10 minutes back and forth, you're in a position where you can do 2-3 deliveries per hour, where a traditional marketplace might do 1.4, 1.5 deliveries per hour. And although that sounds mundane, right? Okay, they can do 0.5 or 0.7 or 0.8 more deliveries per hour. The difference there is an additional 5 to 10% of EBITDA, without exaggeration, right? And so, yeah, we're sitting on sort of major operational insights on rearranging last mile network design and increasing the number of orders we can do per hour to actually get to the level of efficiency that we've achieved today, and then eventually to the level of efficiency that we want to achieve tomorrow. So most of the key insights there are on last mile.
All right. Now, growth journeys can take unexpected directions. So let's look at that from the perspective of you've launched Zepto Cafe. So what are your expectations in terms of its role in attracting and retaining customers, especially on that point of, as I mentioned, growth journeys can lead to unexpected outcomes, unexpected directions?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's slightly seems like a major breakthrough when we compare it with other online players. But in the convenience retail format, right, a cafe nook has always been a key part of how that model operates, right? So for us, it's just a logical extension. It's something customers are actually used to. That when I'm out buying groceries, I might club it with a cup of coffee or a sandwich, and it pretty much falls into the same use case, right? It's something that I want very urgently, and in our case, it made a lot of sense that we can serve customers a hot cup of coffee, and it will actually be hot when it gets delivered, because at the end of the day, it's 10-minute delivery. The sandwich will be fresh and hot, so it all kind of works out from a customer lens, and it's actually not a bet if we have to position this, and it's not food delivery either, right? Food delivery is a very different model. So that's on cafe. Cafe makes a lot of sense as a business, and it's an extension. There's some items that actually help in retention as well. So coffee has very, very high retention for us, right? Samosas, surprisingly, are bestsellers, right? So these things just work. Having said that, we will also keep exploring, anything else, any other business line that where we can leverage our existing infrastructure and gain a deeper share of the consumer's overall spend, not restricted to the grocery spend. But it's a long journey. It's not something we are prioritizing right now.
Aadit, do you think it holds a lessons that to say any startup founder watching, that don't get into too many things and spread yourselves around, focus on your strengths, have that data-driven decision enabling you to reach the next level?
Absolutely. I mean, we're in a position where we don't look at cafe as a new category or a new business. We look at it as something that can enhance the existing business and add value or, slightly horizontal value to our customer in the already existing grocery use case. Today, if you walk into a 7-Eleven in the United States, you can pick up a coffee along with your groceries. Even in, brands in India, right? Offline commerce in India, you've got, cup of coffee along with your groceries being frankly a staple. And actually this insight came, again, bottoms up from our customers, right? Where they said, we love this format of delivery. Can you give us this format of delivery with coffee or tea or, other sort of cafe items that usually are time sensitive, a little bit more impulsive, and are actually usually done, a lot of the use cases directed to getting a coffee done in conjunction with a grocery chore or something like that. And so, we're in a position where we look at sort of, existing branches in our business or expanding into new branches in our business, mainly for the purpose of existing the core value proposition instead of trying to branch into multiple value propositions and distracting you and your management team.
All right. Now, another aspect of quick commerce is safety. There have been concerns raised around safety if delivery agents are reaching within 10 minutes. I want to understand from you, Amritansu, how do broader concerns around safety actually enable Zepto to create a positive message?
So we are actually very pleased, and we kind of expected the aware, conscious consumer of today's day and age to come up with these concerns, right? So whether it's on sustainability of our packaging materials or on the safety of delivery partners, and it's not as if we need to take corrective action to solve these situations. By design, the model where we operate, it is safer. Like Aadit mentioned, 1.7 kilometers is the average delivery distance, right? So 10 minutes, 1.7 kilometers, the average speed to make that delivery is below 15 kilometers per hour, right? So that's lower than the speed limit in parking lots, right? Which means that not only is the delivery really safe, it's intended to be safe, right? So we are not solving 10 minutes through the speed at which the delivery partner is traveling. We're solving it through the intelligence that's been put in to the network design, through the boundaries of the geography, and yeah, that's at the end of the day, delivering within 10 minutes is something that I think Adit's mentioned it in some other forum as well, that it's the responsibility of the head office team to ensure that it happens in 10 minutes. Our delivery partners actually don't even get to see the promised delivery time. Right? There's no penalties for late delivery, no incentives for on-time delivery. So they are encouraged to do it in the safest way possible.
All right, as we head to the last leg of this conversation, I want to also bring in the aspect that earlier enterprises used to have control over their brands, but social influence means that now a vast majority of users, they have that voice, and that voice can be very loud, especially if their expectations do not align with the brand. So I want to understand from you, how do you plan to address this? Because happy customers might not say anything online, but unhappy customers are quite vocal about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a problem of plenty, right? Where the information age, the digital age has ensured that feedback is coming towards brands at light speed right now. And that's great because we can then, modulate our operation. We can course correct very, very frequently now, right? And like I mentioned, one superpower in today's day and age would be to continuously listen to customers. So if there are grievances or there are suggestions, and there are multiple occasions where we have actually heard them and we've taken action, um, then it's important that brands actually pay a lot of attention to it. It's not something that would be nice to have. If we are able to prioritize that, consumers take notice, they feel valued, and at the end of the day, in a relationship, one side should not feel as if they are taken for granted. So I think um, in that way, for sure there's probably a lot of room for improvement, but we've done a fair job in listening to consumers a lot.
All right, as we look to wrap up our conversation, Adit, any words of advice to all the startup founders and entrepreneurs watching this show? Something which will stick with them. What's your view?
Yeah, I think, and this has been the theme across the conversation, but uh, genuinely internalizing customer obsession is critical, right? Even today, as a much larger team, we're in a position where any objective, be it a growth objective, a unit economics objective, or a strategic objective, all of it is within the context of how does this benefit our customer and our customer experience. And I think that obsession is the reason, and the execution of the team to deliver that. The only reason why we've been able to get customer love and as many customers as we have in such a short period of time is because of that obsession, right? And so the hard guardrail always has to be, NPS, retention, customer experience, in any conversation that happens at the company for any objective, right? Be it business, be it growth, etc. And so, I think that served us well. And I think the second piece is, especially earlier in the journey, think micro or not macro. It's much harder to uh, build a company in the first place than it is to take a company and make it a great company. Right? Most people fail in that 0 to 1 journey or that 1 to 10 journey, then the 10 to 100 journey. Obviously, the 10 to 100 journey is no joke, right? It's extremely difficult as well. But I always tell people that I meet that your job is significantly, if you haven't started a company or think you're starting a company or you just started, your job is much harder than mine, because getting to that position in the first place is something that Kevalia and I struggled with for years, right? And so we know how difficult that is. So think micro, get sort of the cylinders around you to fire before you start thinking about the grand vision of and enduring generational company. So yeah, I think that's what I would leave everyone with, and among sort of the other things that were said in this conversation.
All right. Aadit, Amritansu, thank you so much for joining us and sharing the blueprint of Zepto's growth story, which I'm sure serves as an inspiration for many of our viewers watching on how to retain customers despite many challenges lining the business landscape. Now, in India's growing unicorn base, I'm sure many of these insights would serve as a guide to budding entrepreneurs on scaling up while maintaining customer focus using technology. Well, it's time now to move on to our next segment where we will get a bird's eye view of the investment story behind Zepto. People have great ideas, but they always want someone to believe in their ideas and back it. The growth story of Zepto is one such example where Suvir Sujan, Managing Director, Nexus Venture Partners, believed in the idea of two young Stanford dropouts and backed them. And the result is in front of us, a unicorn in the making. So let's bring in Suvir to understand what went through his mind when he first came across Zepto's pitch and what made him take the big leap in backing the idea. Suvir, great to have you with us. I'm really looking forward to understanding the investment story of Zepto from your side. What was your reading of the founders of Zepto when you first met? Two young guys looking to make it big, taking that big leap. What was your reading of them?
They were very mature for their age when I first met them. I think what's interesting about the founding team was when I first met them, they actually they had started the company in a certain manner, and they were actually looking to listen to the market on whether what they had started off was actually working or not. And then they came to me at a point where they realized that what they started off with actually is not something that the market is wanting, which is the asset-light marketplace where you pick up products from kiranas and deliver groceries to the consumer. And what was interesting is when I met them first, they had the maturity and the intellectual and honesty to realize that they needed to get into a business where they actually had more control over the whole business model for grocery delivery. So in one word, I think the maturity of the founders were striking.
What did you make of the service that Zepto was offering at that time? Because it's not like the market was bare. There were some players. What struck you as, these guys are doing something new?
So the first thing is, in the new generation of consumers, right, on demand is a way of life. And when they talked about them doing something on the on demand space, it was actually quite new when we spoke to them, because at that point of time, there was no real visible on demand platform in the country, and trying to get your groceries delivered to your doorstep within a 10-minute or 15-minute time frame was actually novel, and it was a need of the hour for the industry back then. I had met up with a bunch of grocery companies in my past decade as an investor, and most of them were delivering planned groceries or groceries that actually were in, I would say, more of a planned duration of a couple of hours. So it was a new model when we met them.
What did you make of the service that Zepto was offering, which was new at the time? I mean, it was new, but it was not so new that there were no other players. So what struck you about Zepto that, this is a big idea?
It was two or three things. First thing was that they actually had a the idea itself of consistency of delivery of service within a 10 to 15 minute time frame, I don't think anybody else was talking in that language. I was even focusing on that language of saying, I'll get your groceries to your doorstep within a certain duration of time. This is again, I'm now talking about more than a year and a half ago. The second thing that I think was important is that they actually had a product first philosophy, which is very important in terms of how they would achieve the consistency. And I think what I mean by that is, if you're trying to deliver something within a time frame, day in and day out, you need to have full visibility of how do you get the inwarding of the products to your warehouse, how do you make sure you have enough of the operational processes in place to get it out of your warehouse to a customer's doorstep, day in, day out within the time frame. And that cannot be done without laser focus on technology. And so I think that's something which got me comfortable, that these guys actually have they have not only the vision, but the operational understanding of what it takes to build this out.
All right. Maturity, product philosophy, these are the keywords coming about. What was your assessment of their customer attraction and retention strategies?
So, because they were product first thinkers, I was comfortable and confident that the product by itself will draw the customers. If you are able to deliver on the promise of a 10 to 15 minute service, I think it's addictive to customers and customers will come back. So I was a lot more focused when I was talking to them on how do you make sure you have consistency of service within the time frame. And if that happened, your service will be addictive.
How did you rate their business model amid a very hectic competitive landscape?
So the business model is comprised by a couple of things. One is the product margins. They focused on fresh vegetables and fruits very early on. That gives you a much higher margin than a typical grocery basket. The second thing is, to deliver fresh, you need to have very strong operational processes tied to technology, because you need processes to be able to demand forecast. What will someone want in fresh, so that you only order that product in fresh the night before? How do you make sure that you actually are measuring using technology, the decay of fresh? Fresh decays very quickly. So how do you measure the decay of fresh so that you're able to only stock enough for the given time duration before it starts to decay? The third is, how do you make sure that you deliver a consistency of service within the 15-minute or 10-minute time frame? And that requires, again, a lot of network operational planning, a lot of forecasting around shift management for labor, and just overall the whole topography of how do you optimize the delivery within a geo is also very important, and you need technology for that. So I think overall, their business model was a byproduct of their operational capabilities.
And what's your assessment now of their plans for their future, considering Zepto has turned one? What's next?
I think seeing what they have done over the last 12 months, I think the confidence is supreme that they will execute their plans going forward. I think they have really delivered on a promise, which I think they set out to do 12 months ago. And it's consistent. Anyone I meet today tells me that it's probably the best grocery service I've ever witnessed.
On that note, thank you so much for giving us your time and sharing with us the investment story behind Zepto. I'm sure lots of reference points are coming about in terms of whether it's product philosophy, customer centricity, and of course the technology that powers an enterprise to make that big leap, take it from an idea to a fantastic growth story. And we wish Zepto all the best. Thank you so much for your time, Suraj. Thank you. And with that, we come to the end of this episode of ET Brand Equity Presents The Big Leap, powered by CleverTap. I hope you enjoyed listening to these leaders and their growth stories. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. Till then, this is your host, Gautam Srinivasan, signing off. Have a great day.